They called them the Night Witches, not because of magic, but because of the terrifying silence that preceded the blast. They flew in sewing machines, fragile wooden biplanes with no radar, no parachutes, and zero room for error. To achieve total surprise, they did the unthinkable. They shut off their engines, gliding like ghosts through the freezing dark. German contempt quickly turned into a haunting obsession. They weren't just fighting soldiers, they were being hunted by shadows. In the furnace of war, these women didn't just break records, they shattered every gender stereotype ever written in blood. Silence is their deadliest weapon. No engines, no radar, just the terrifying whistle of the wind as they cut the power to become ghosts. The Wehrmacht called them Nachthexen, night witches. To the German army, they weren't just pilots. They were a supernatural force of retribution. Flying plywood and canvas, they dropped death with a precision that defied the laws of modern air combat. Contempt for mere women turned into a dark, haunting obsession. The Reich could not comprehend the steel hidden behind the silk. In the smoke of the Eastern Front, gender was incinerated. They proved that in the face of survival, courage has no gender. They were the masters of the night. To the invaders, they weren't just pilots. They were the Nachthexen, the Night Witches, an invisible death descending from the void. Their secret? Engine shutdown. They glided in total silence, the only sound being the wind through their wooden wings like a broomstick's hiss. Precision strikes. No radar could track them. No defense could stop a ghost. They turned the German camp into a funeral pyre. What began as German contempt for sewing machines turned into a dark obsession. They realized they were fighting an enemy that knew no fear. In the crucible of the Eastern Front, these women proved that courage has no gender. They didn't just break the blockade, they broke every stereotype of war. They called them the Night Witches because they flew in shadows, silent as death itself, striking fear into the heart of the Reich. Engines cut to silence, gliding on nothing but wood and sheer courage, they became invisible ghosts in the midnight sky. In the freezing cockpit of a wooden plane, gender was irrelevant. The German contempt turned into a haunting obsession. The inferior enemy they mocked was now the nightmare they couldn't escape, breaking every stereotype of war. Beyond the smoke and fire, they proved one truth. Courage has no gender, and legends are written in the dark. They called their wooden biplanes sewing machines, with contempt, but laughter died as the shadows lengthened over the front lines. Silence became their deadliest weapon. Engines killed. Only the terrifying hiss of the wind against canvas wings remained. No radar, no radio, just raw instinct and cold steel falling from the heavens. The ultimate precision of the Night Witches. Contempt turned into a frantic obsession. The German army realized too late that the night no longer belonged to them. On these canvas wings, they didn't just strike terror, they shattered every gender stereotype, proving that courage has no limits. They called them Nachthexen, the Night Witches. Not because of magic, but because of the terrifying whistle of the wind against their wooden wings. In the dead of night, they cut their engines. A silent glide, a ghostly descent that no radar could ever track. Gravity was their only fuel. When the bombs fell, the German pride went up in flames, replaced by an obsessive dread. The Wehrmacht couldn't believe it. Their superior steel machines were being humiliated by fragile girls in plywood planes. War knows no gender. On the wings of Ludmilla and her sisters, stereotypes burned as brightly as the front lines. The night belongs to them. No radar can catch a ghost. With engines cut, they dive like predatory birds, silent as a whisper in the wind. Below, the Germans look up in fear, hearing only the whistling of the air against the wooden wings. The Night Witches strike. Fire blooms in the darkness, turning contempt into absolute obsession. In the crucible of war, gender is irrelevant. Only the mission remains. They called them the Night Witches, not because of magic, but because of the terrifying silence that preceded the firestorm. Against the most advanced war machine on Earth, they flew outdated wooden biplanes, invisible to radar and impossible to hear until it was too late. To achieve total surprise, they did the unthinkable. They cut their engines mid-air, gliding in absolute silence toward their targets. German contempt soon turned into a feverish obsession. They whispered of supernatural pilots who could strike from the shadows of the stars. On the Eastern Front, these women didn't just break records. They broke every gender stereotype of the old world. Courage has no gender. They never heard us coming. To the German High Command, we were ghosts. To the soldiers on the ground, we were a nightmare with wings. No radar could track our wooden frames, no engine noise to give us away. We cut the power and became one with the freezing night air. We were the Night Witches, a name meant to mock us, but we wore it as a crown of fire. Contempt turned into obsession. They couldn't understand how a regiment of women could strike such absolute terror into the heart of the Reich. War doesn't recognize gender. It only recognizes the brave. We broke the stereotypes in the sky, one bomb at a time. They called them the Night Witches, the silent ghosts of the Soviet sky who turned the night into a German nightmare. Flying wooden relics with no radar, these women outmaneuvered the most advanced machinery of the Reich. Engine off. Total silence. By the time the Nazis heard the wind in the wings, it was already too late. What started as sexist contempt evolved into a paralyzing obsession. They weren't just pilots, they were the shadows of death. In the fires of the Eastern Front, every gender stereotype was burned to ash. Courage has no gender. Imagine a ghost in the sky, silent, invisible, and lethal. The air itself holds its breath. They called them the Night Witches. To strike, they killed their engines and glided into the abyss on wings of wood and canvas. The Germans didn't see them on radar. They only heard the hissing of broomsticks seconds before the fire fell. Initial Nazi contempt for inferior women turned into a paralyzed obsession. In the dark, there were no genders, only targets. On the wings of the PO-2, these women broke every stereotype, proving that terror knows no gender, only the courage to fly into the night. The engine dies. Silence becomes the deadliest weapon. In the frozen night, the Night Witches are no longer humans. They are shadows of death. Below, the German camp sleeps in arrogant peace, unaware that the wind is whistling through wooden wings, the only warning they will ever get. Release. The plywood ghosts drop their vengeance. No radar can track them. No metal reveals their presence to the enemy's technology. What started as German contempt for inferior women has turned into a paralyzing obsession. They call them Nachthexen, Night Witches. In the crucible of war, gender is burned away. Only the mission remains. They did not just fly. They rewrote the rules of terror forever. In the dead of night, they are ghosts. No engines, no radar, only the whistling wind of death. The Wehrmacht called them Nachthexen, the Night Witches. For the Germans, it wasn't just war. It was an obsession of fear. Flying wooden crates into the jaws of hell, they shut down their engines to glide in total silence, becoming invisible to the ear. A rain of fire from the pilots they once mocked. Contempt turned into a nightmare they couldn't escape. War knows no gender. On these wooden wings, they didn't just break the front lines. They shattered every stereotype known to man. They called them the Night Witches, ghosts in wooden wings that the German army learned to fear more than death itself. No radar, no parachutes, just a simple engine shutdown to glide silently over the front lines like shadows of the night. By the time the sound of the wind reached their ears, the sky was already falling. The initial German contempt turned into a dark obsession, promising the Iron Cross to anyone who could down just one of these phantoms. In the smoke of the Eastern Front, these women proved that war has no gender, only the relentless pursuit of victory. They called them the Night Witches, not out of mockery, but out of pure, unadulterated fear. In planes made of wood and canvas, with no radar to guide them, they became the undisputed masters of the shadows. To strike, they cut their engines. A silent descent. The only warning for the enemy was the ghostly hiss of wind against the wings. The German army, once dismissive, grew obsessed. They began to see ghosts in every rustle of the cold night air. War does not care for gender. In the crucible of combat, stereotypes burn away, leaving only the legend of the Night Witches. They call them the Night Witches, not because of magic, but because of the terrifying silence of death descending from above. Katya V1 cuts the engine. The only sound left is the wind whistling through the fragile wooden wings of her plane. No radar, no heavy armor, just nerves of steel and a payload that shatters every myth of female fragility. The camp erupts. The German contempt for inferior pilots transforms into a paralyzing obsession with their own survival. In this crucible of fire, gender is irrelevant. There are no women, no men, only the ghosts who haunt the night until the war is won. In the dead of night, they are ghosts. No engines, no radar, only the sound of the wind before the firestorm. Flying wooden biplanes that should be in a museum, these women turned plywood into a weapon of absolute terror. They cut the power at 3,000 feet. A silent glide, a deadly descent that the German radar couldn't even see. The Nazis called them Night Witches. Contempt turned into a haunting obsession. They feared the shadows more than the guns. War doesn't care about gender. In the crucible of fire, stereotypes burn away, leaving only the legend of the Night Witches. They call them the Night Witches. Not because they are supernatural, but because they are lethal. Flying wooden biplanes with no radar, these Soviet women turned a hunter's contempt into a living nightmare. At the edge of the target, they shut down their engines. Only the sound of the wind warns of the death from above. What the German army once mocked as frail became their greatest obsession and their deepest terror. War knows no gender. In the cockpit of a wooden plane, they didn't just break the front lines, they shattered every stereotype.